Ladies and gentlemen, it's the Shawn Mackey Show. He's so unpredictable. Mother Nature calls him for advice. Only 4 more episodes to go for this season of the Shawn Mackey Show. Gotta tell you, we're going to do as we always have done. And maybe this is why things are a little bit more difficult for us. You maybe say wishy-washy. We say tweaking to find gold or perfection. All right. I know this is an audio-only podcast. I do share the videos, but I'm going to kind of spruce up the backgrounds in my little studio here coming soon. We're hoping to finally get into putting full video versions of the show on YouTube come next season, which is going to start here soon in February with the Cubs, right after football season. So we got some things in store, okay? We talked about last week's episode that we were going to talk about my top 10 Chicago Bears. I'm kind of putting a list together. I'm going to let you in on a sneak peek of that before today's episode is over. But we have a lot to unpack in this 49ers game. So first and foremost, I'm going to say, I think finally for me, especially, I felt like we saw a complete game offensively by the Bears. Didn't go the way we wanted it to go, but did we really think we could keep squeaking out wins for the rest of the season, you know, in the final seconds? And there was opportunity there on that final drive and that final play. But this game for me kind of unpacked a lot of stuff. First of all, it's the first game this season where I finally fucking broke down and started yelling and screaming at the TV, especially late in the game and on that last San Francisco drive that sealed the victory for them. I was fucking super pissed. And we'll get into that in a minute. But I want to say that I feel like this is one of the first complete offensive games I'd seen. Now, I wasn't happy with the run game. You know, the Bears still managed to squeak out, like maybe 110, 120 yards. Let's see, rushing yards, 110 yards to San Francisco's 200. That's no bueno. And just the fact that San Francisco racks up 200 rushing yards kind of allows me to look at things as a whole with what we're seeing, or at least what I'm seeing. But honestly, when you scrub the social media, when you look at the posts, when you read the articles, it's like, I know I wasn't going crazy. I know I'm not the only one who felt this way. And there's evidence out there to back it up. But defensively, this team is lacking. It is lacking big time as a whole defensively. Is it Dennis Allen? Is it the players? Is it Ryan Poles? And I know you're going to say, well, what the fuck? Ryan Poles, he's not out there playing or coaching or calling plays. Is this an indictment of what he put together for this season? And now in the grand scheme of things, maybe it's kind of making sense. Have the Bears finally put together the offensive pieces they have, knowing that they possibly have a championship caliber offense now? And since this was kind of a rebuilding, I mean, you still had a couple of years for Ryan Poles, but he gets extended when they sign Ben Johnson. So now you got the coach that you want. So was it going to be offense now because we had Caleb, defense later, and did they know going into the season this was going to be an issue? Maybe Dennis Allen as the coach kind of knew, all right, I see what you've got and what you've given me here, and I'm going to do the best I can. But hopefully this is a long-term solution, and we're here to build something and build something big. if that makes sense. All right. So again, offensively, one of the most complete games that I've seen from the Bears. They went toe to toe with San Francisco, one of the more high powered offenses that we've seen in the NFL this season. And it was score for score for score for score for score for score for score. If there was a punt in there, it seemed like the other team was able to force a punt, and then the score for score kept going. All right, until late in the game. And then the Bears, they don't get their touchdown, which would have given them that touchdown lead. They settle for the field goal and they take the late lead 38-35. 5 some odd minutes left to go in the game like that. And you're like, well, if we could just stop them here, maybe we could put another drive together, take a 6 to 10 point lead with just a minute or so left to go in the game, and you're sitting pretty. And then that last drive by San Francisco that, I saw a lot of things go on. I'm not saying the officiating is why the Bears lost this game, but it was poor officiating. Seen plenty of articles and posts to kind of back that up. But there were mistakes made by the Bears, especially on the defense. There was another defensive meltdown late. The Bears couldn't get the stop that they needed. And we know the final outcome. San Francisco 42, Bears 38. A well-fought game. I think maybe the offense is clicking and starting to gel, and we've got that championship caliber offense. Defense is still lacking. So some things I don't understand about what's going on defensively. 2 weeks ago, DeMarco Jackson, he earns like player of the week honors for the NFC on defense. And then the last 2 weeks, he's only played special teams. Noah Sewell goes down in that game after played 13 snaps defensively. And we still don't see DeMarco Jackson. So where was that? That was bad in and of itself. The linebackers, the two main guys, Edmonds and Edwards, played 99% of the snaps. Surely DeMarco could have got in there somewhere, given those other guys a little bit of a rest and a break, and maybe we could have seen some good things. Because when we've seen DeMarco Jackson play, he's done some really good things. Hence, Player of the Week honors 2 weeks ago, right? So, and then Edmonds and Edwards, they're targeted 11 times when they're in pass coverage, probably mostly in that zone defense, maybe man-to-man, since they're saying that it was Edwards allowed 4 receptions and he was targeted 4 times and gave up a TD. Edmonds allowed 7 receptions and was targeted 7 times. So between the two, 11 targets, 11 receptions from your linebacking core. Okay. Not good. Not good at all. Shawn Wright, for all the good we've seen him do with the takeaways this year for the Bears, who, by the way, lead the league in takeaways. They had their 32nd on the very first fucking play of the game. Tip, pick, Edwards, scores. All right. So, but Shawn Wright, he had 7 targets. They targeted Shawn Wright 7 times. He gave up 6 receptions for 101 yards in this game. So far, everything that I have issues with is on the defensive side of the ball. I do kind of focus in that area. When I last coached, I was a defensive coordinator, and we played in this zone defense that we had at the high school level. And ever since then, I've hated the zone. The zone can be so beneficial if you know how to use it right. The problem with the zone is if you don't have certain pieces to the puzzle, any decent quarterback who has good rhythm with good receivers is going to pick your zone apart. And we saw Brock Purdy do this against the Bears. All right. And for me personally, as a former defensive coordinator and offensive line and defensive line coach, right? It starts up front with your defensive line. This defensive line gives no pressure. It's almost like I feel like at the snap of the ball, they're standing up and they're just wanting to see what the fuck happens. They're watching the game with front row seats and doing absolutely nothing. On that last drive that the Bears had, look at how much pressure the four men up front for San Francisco were getting. Now, they're not that great of a defensive line either, right? But they were getting the damn pressure and making Caleb scramble and panic a little bit. That's all I got to say. The Bears, no pressure up front. And if you're going to play a zone defense and you're going to play that regularly in consistency, yeah, zone defense is great for disguising coverages, making them think that it's man, then popping out into a zone, kind of trying to confuse the quarterback, making a show blitz, dropping out of the blitz. Is it man? They come up, quarterback comes up to the line, he's reading, okay, this is man defense. And then boom, you drop back in that zone. But the problem is if you don't get pressure up front, your zone falls apart. Because first of all, that defensive line, you're running a zone defense, but there's no guarantee that it's a passing down. So that front four has to defend against the run. Okay, first and foremost. The Bears give up 200 yards rushing to San Francisco. They didn't defend against the run. They haven't. They're terrible. Okay? You don't get that pressure up front. You're not forcing that quarterback to make quicker decisions, which when you're playing man, you have a timing rhythm where quick decisions are actually wanted and expected because it's a timing thing and you know where the receiver's going to break and you just put the ball. But in a zone, the quarterback's dropping back. If you're not putting pressure on him, it's almost like playing on the sandlot where he just draws up, all right, Benny, you go out, you run about 3 yards this way, you shoot to your left. If there's a guy there, just circle back around and move to the inside. All right, Johnny, you go up deep there. But if you see that guy is kind of backpedaling on you, then you stop and come forward. And that's all. The good receivers in the league and the good quarterbacks, they see that zone and they're running their routes and they don't even finish a route. They just set up. You set up where there's nobody in that zone. And if you get 2 or 3 guys at each different level of the zone setting up and they're wide open, and your defense is kind of just standing there flat-footed watching the action that's going on in front of them, that zone's going to pick you apart all day. Yeah, a good key to the zone is like don't give up the big play. Keep everything in front of you, and then everybody swarms to the ball and tackles. Well, at one point, San Francisco was forced into a 2nd and 17. Bears play this off that stupid zone, and next thing you know, boom, a 14-yard completion. 3rd and 3. What the hell? All right. So that was a big issue that I had there defensively. The defensive line is atrocious. I don't think Dennis Allen is bringing the greatest pressure, and he's been known to have some great defenses, but I guess it's only if he has the studs. And we all know that the 2nd and 3rd teamers on this Bears roster, and that's where I say Ryan Poles, it's an indictment on Poles on the depth pieces that he's put together for this team. And the Bears defensively are an issue. 5 losses this year, and they've given up over 30 points in each of those losses. So if you want an offense that's going to go out there and put points on the board, but defensively, you got to get some stops where you're still not going to win games no matter how good your offense is playing. So I don't know where the Bears are going to go from here. I think they're a little ahead of schedule as far as rebuilding goes and what they want to accomplish. And I know as fans, I'm still cautiously optimistic. And I'm not a very optimistic person. But You got one game left against Detroit, and that's a game you got to win. Ben Johnson said it's personal. The starters are not resting, and I don't blame him. He wants to go out and win that game. You got to avenge that week 2 loss. That was a drubbing. Now, so far you've gone and been able to split with the Packers and the Vikings. Now you got to absolutely win out and split with the Lions. You got to go into the playoffs, especially if you end up getting Green Bay at home, at your home. The Bears are home. You get Green Bay. You want to go in there coming off of a victory and confidence level. But something has to happen defensively. We know this Bears defensive line has been terrible and hasn't gotten pressure all year. We see it as fans. It's ridiculous. So Dennis Allen should know that. And stop playing that damn weak-ass zone, right? And I see a lot of posts and people out there saying, we're one edge rusher away. We're one edge rusher away. I think Austin Booker's coming on. The kid, he made a couple of plays early in that game, was looking really good. He's coming on strong. Montez Sweat, I think you can still get some use out of him. But here's the deal. We need one of those one technique guys that's quick off the ball, that can stuff the run, but is going to, get 6 or 7 sacks for you a year. I think that you pick up a guy like that, maybe don't go after the big edge rusher, big top name edge rusher. Develop Booker some more. I think you free up Sweat a lot if you got one of those big fat guys in the middle that just explodes off the ball and disrupts everything in the middle. He's taking on double and triple teams all the time, but yet he gets loose and is able to pick up them 5 or 6 or 7 sacks a season. Man, you put a house in the middle of that defensive line. I think it frees up a lot for the edge rushers you already have on this roster in Montez Sweat and Austin Booker, as he's been coming on a little bit late. So I've got my champs and my chumps for this game against the 49ers. I'm going to go with Caleb Williams. I think I'm finally going to jump on this bandwagon. I don't know. I'm kind of running behind the wagon a little bit at a slow jog, wondering if I want to jump on, kind of trying to look at the mile marker and see how far do I got to go. Should I jump on this wagon and make my ride a little bit easier? But he was 25 of 42 for 330 yards, a couple of touchdowns. 100.3 passer rating. I saw some good deep balls. I'm still missing some damn throws. He misses Devin Duvernay late. I think he had him wide open, could have went for a touchdown. That last drive, I know in real time, everybody wants to say that, Ja'Day Walker coming across the middle was open. DJ Moore was in the other corner, jumping up and down, looking for the ball. I personally think at the snap of that ball, his best option would have been to hit the check down DeAndre Swift, because the Bears were scrambling to get that play off. Ben Johnson even later admitted that he didn't get the play call in time, so Caleb was trying to piece it together. So there was some fuck-uppery going there, and he finally gets the snap off, and DeAndre Swift is trailing out to the left for the check down, and all of a sudden, somebody on San Francisco realizes DeAndre Swift is wide fucking open for the corner of the end zone. And if Caleb sees that at that point and gets that out to Swift, that puts the advantage on Swift. Because if you look at the film, the guy that ended up covering Swift was coming from, he was maybe a safety, I don't remember exactly, or a linebacker, but he was in the middle of the field. And he sees Swift wide open, so he starts coming from about 2 or 3 yards deep in the end zone, and he's running on this little half circle to try to get himself in that position, to pick up Swift. Well, if you hit Swift right away, I think the angle the defender's taken and the angle that Swift's taken, that puts Swift one-on-one with that guy. And hey, if that guy makes that tackle and saves that game at that point, more fucking power to him. But I think at that point, DeAndre Swift jukes him out of his jock. Bears score and win that game. Wow, I really hope this recording's not screwed up because I just realized my mic level was turned up extremely high. Hopefully, all that editing and fixing can make it sound normal. If not, I might be re-recording this shit tomorrow, but you'll never know because you won't see this post unless I keep it for a blooper. That's right, give me a blooper. All right, so I'm going to go with Caleb Williams as one of my champs. Of course, I got to go with LB3. Burden is showing me some things that I am absolutely loving to see out of a wide receiver. He's blocking pretty decently. He had 8 receptions on 9 targets for 138 yards and a touchdown. Jade Walker's coming up. Not ready to give him a champ yet. He got that last week, I believe, if I even did champs and chumps. Unpredictable, opinionated, unedited. It's all over the place, bro. Colston Loveland again, 6 receptions for 94 yards and a TD. And I'm going to go ahead and throw in the entire Bears offense as a champ because it looked to me like they finally came together. They got some things working right. I would have liked to have seen the run game a little bit more prevalent, but DeAndre Swift did have 9 carries for 54 yards, and Monangai had 8 for 38. And was it Monangai? There was a play, I want to say it was a run, but one of the Bears backs, it was Monangai, I think. He was one-on-one with a defender, and it looked like that defender kind of fell to his knee a little bit, and if Monangai just takes a step to the left, he's gone. But then at the last second, it looks like he was like, nah, and he'll just go in and fucking plow the defender over. And I do want to say that was Monangai, but he had 8 carries for 38 yards and Caleb 5 of 18 for that 110 yards. DeAndre Swift goes over the 1,000-yard mark. Yes, sir. That's the first Bears 1,000-yard rusher since, I believe, 2020. And David Montgomery, now with those hated Detroit Lions, was the last Bears 1,000-yard rusher. Well, Justin Fields, I say running back, the last running back. Justin Fields had like 1,132 yards a couple of years ago when he was running for his life with the Bears, but I don't count that because he's a quarterback. So, chumps, that defense, they chumped out. That last drive, just giving everything up. Couldn't get, I think if that defense gives you 3 other stops than what they had, obviously the Bears win that game. And they just couldn't manage to do that. Brock Purdy and Christian McCaffrey were just fucking running all up and down on the field on them all day. McCaffrey ran for 140 yards and added 41 yards receiving. Ricky Pearsall was just all over the place. So that last drive, that defense gave up 496 yards on the day. So I'm going with our number 1 chump for this game was that Bears defense. Nashawn Wright for the aforementioned, giving up 6 receptions for 101 yards allowed. Absolutely pathetic, terrible. The Bears linebacking crew of Edmonds and Edwards, 11 total receptions and a TD. And because that run game didn't seem to be there as much as I would have liked it to be, I'm going to just say that this O-line was one of my chumps. The Bears O-line for the 49ers games were chumps for me because they just allowed too much pressure on those last couple of drives. 4 men front, just giving up pressure unbelievably. So they only managed to squeak out 110 yards rushing. Not the offensive line and the run game that we've been used to seeing the last couple of games. So I think if you're going to talk about, or I'm going to talk about being kind of a complete offense, I think you need to look at and say that run game, maybe you needed to, pick up another 45, 50 yards. Maybe if you're looking at 150, that's what I'd like to see. All right. So that's pretty much all I got for the recap of this game. My champs, my chumps, right? Gave you my opinions on that zone defense and what I see from the Bears. Hopefully this recording turned out well and you'll get a little funny section in the middle there. You'll already have seen that. But here's what I'm looking at so far before I actually dive into these players a little bit deeper. But we were doing forgotten NFL legends, and then I thought, do the Bears. And then there's a Bears top 100 players list. So let's look at these guys. So what I decided to do for my top 10 there was some criteria. I said they had to either play a majority of their career with the Bears, or if they were here briefly, they had to have a very big, significant impact during the seasons that they were here. So that was a little bit of my criteria. All right. And I just want them to be somebody that I've seen play. I'm 57 years old. I can remember back as watching Bears games as young as 5 years old. So 52 some odd years. So I'm just going to give you my personal top 10 as we move forward with the rest of this season. My top 10 players. And I don't know if I want to limit it to top 10 because I started thinking maybe I'm going to give you my top offense for the Bears, my top defense for the Bears, and my top special teams for the Bears. So as I think about that and ponder that for the rest of this week and weekend, and Happy New Year, by the way, and we get the Bears' final game, which has been flexed now again to 3:25 on Sunday, I might add a little bit more to this, but I'm going to give you right now the top 10 I'm thinking with. If I keep it just the top 10 list, well, then you're going to know who they are. But then in the future episodes, as I break down each player's career, I'm going to tell you why I put them in my top 10. So no particular order. Guys that I've seen play in my lifetime, I'm going with Olin Kreutz, Dan Hampton, Brian Urlacher, Devin Hester, Charles Tillman, Wilbur Marshall, Robbie Gould, Kevin Butler, Gale Sayers. And I need to probably take him off the list because I don't think I'd witnessed and watched him play live. I started my list with that, and I just realized now that I'm all willy-nilly rolling shit out on you before I did some editing. And then Walter Payton is up there too. But and I say Sayers because I did last season top one of NFL players. He was on my list. I met the man personally, although briefly. Super nice guy. So originally I was thinking top 10 and I was going to take my top 10 out of that top 100 list that I found from the Chicago Tribune. But then I started tweaking it and thinking I might go top offense, top defense, top special teams. So he was kind of on my list. So I'm going to those are 10 or 11 guys right there that I know that I would include on my top any Chicago Bears list. I'm going to dive into it more this weekend and debut that for you on next week's episode when we recap the season finale against the Detroit Lions. Hoping for a victory on Sunday. Put away some of these notes. That's all I got for you, people. I'll see you on the streets. Peace. Hey, if I made you laugh, made you think, or even made you smile, please tell all your friends. If I didn't, just keep that shit to yourself. Thanks for listening to the Shawn Mackey Show.